I'm currently standing here in the historic downtown center of Vilnius, the capital of Lithuania, and behind me stands the beautiful St. Parasceve Orthodox Church. This is the oldest brick church in Lithuania, and today it's a very small and specialized church. It is the only church in the world to offer Orthodox liturgy in the Lithuanian language, and it currently serves a community of around 20 to 30 parishioners. But this building has a very long and storied history. It's a story of a Russian-speaking Orthodox faithful community that follows the religious, historical, and political trends of Europe through almost 7 centuries now of history. The story of this church begins in the 14th century when the young country of Lithuania was just beginning to accept Christian traditions. The wife of Grand Duke Algirdas, who ruled Lithuania at the time, was Maria Yaroslavna. She was a Russian princess by birth, and to Lithuania with her, she brought her Orthodox faith and her Orthodox traditions. And lacking any sort of church or chapel, she ordered the construction of this church on the site of a pagan ritual place, very literally paving over the old traditions with the new. And at first, the church was not a public place of worship. It was the exclusive chapel of the royal family of Lithuania. This building was actually where all of Grand Duke Algirdas's children were baptized. During the 17th century, the church would find itself in a period of religious strife and religious tension. In 1611, the Unitarians, who were a group which had gained an increasing foothold in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, seized the church and disconnected it from the Orthodox community, making it a Unitarian institution. And the Unitarian interlude would only last a few decades. It was returned to the Orthodox community in 1655. But the way in which the church was returned to the community speaks to its significance to specifically the Russian-speaking Orthodox community, as the church would only be returned after the Russian Tsar Alexis had captured Vilnius in 1655 during the Russo-Polish War. It was the Russian occupying authority which seized the church from the Unitarians and returned it to the Orthodox faithful, which speaks to how it was still very much connected to that mostly foreign, mostly Russian-speaking Orthodox ruling elite, as it had been throughout the past centuries. In 1705, the church would be visited by Tsar Peter the Great in order to commemorate a victory over King Charles XII of Sweden. During this visit, he would also baptize the great-grandfather of the famous Russian poet Alexander Pushkin, who was an African man named Hannibal. This event continues to be remembered and memorialized by the church by several inscriptions and plaques on the exterior of the building, as well as by this memorial in the courtyard. During the late imperial period, while Lithuania and Vilnius were still under the control of the Russian Empire, the church remained very connected with the Russian Orthodox population, but came to occupy a very different and specialized role in regards to the community which it served. During this period, the church was not an independent parish of its own, but was connected instead with with a larger nearby Orthodox parish. But the church was located very close to what was at the time the headquarters of the Russian military forces in Lithuania, and the church became a very specialized religious space for these soldiers, and it would mainly come to serve the Russian military forces that were stationed, who would come to this building to pray and to practice their faith. There is comparatively little information available about the history of the church from between the start of World War II to the Soviet occupation of Lithuania and of Vilnius post-Second World War. However, what is very clear is that the arrival of the Soviet occupation to Lithuania and to Vilnius brought about very dramatic changes in the lives of the people here. not least of which was in people's religious practices and their ability to practice their faith. The Soviet Union, as part of a broader campaign to suppress the influence of religion, attempted to secularize many buildings, many religious buildings and institutions, and this church would be one of them. In 1956, the Soviet authority in Vilnius attempted to have the building converted into a museum of atheism, like many other churches were during this period. However, this attempt was ultimately unsuccessful, but the space would still end up being secularized. In 1962, the Soviet government seized the church from the Orthodox community and the Orthodox Church, and they converted it into a museum of small artistic forms rather than a museum of atheism. But the effect was still very much the same.
After decades of Soviet rule, during which the church was repurposed for secular uses, including as a gallery of Lithuanian folk art and, briefly, a museum of painting, the church was finally returned to the Russian Orthodox Church in 1990, following Lithuania's declaration of independence from the Soviet Union. The reconsecration of the church took place in 1991, led by Metropolitan Chrysostom, restoring its status as a place of worship.